The alien ship lay in ruins, its once gleaming hull now a twisted mess of metal and smoke. The alien crew stood nearby, their faces grim. "It's beyond repair," their leader said, his voice heavy with defeat. "No one can fix this." But the humans weren't listening. A group of cadets, barely out of training, stepped forward. They were from Earth, a death world, as the galaxy called it. A place where survival was a daily battle, where only the toughest thrived. And these cadets were the toughest of the tough. "We can fix it," one of them said, his voice steady. The aliens laughed. "You? Fix this? It's impossible." The cadets didn't flinch. They'd heard that word before. Impossible. It didn't mean much to them. As they approached the ship, the cadets felt the weight of the task ahead. The alien technology was unlike anything they'd ever seen. But they had something the aliens didn't: grit, determination, and a refusal to give up. By lunchtime, the ship's engines roared to life. The alien crew stared in disbelief as the ship's engines hummed with power. The cadets stood back, their faces smeared with grease and sweat, but their eyes shone with triumph. The aliens had said it was impossible, but the cadets had done it. One of the aliens, a tall figure with shimmering blue skin, stepped forward. How did you do this?" he asked, his voice trembling. The lead cadet, a young man with a scar running down his cheek, shrugged. "We're from Earth," he said simply. "Impossible is just another word to us." The cadets didn't have fancy tools or advanced technology. What they had was something far more valuable: the ability to adapt. Growing up on a death world had taught them that. Earth was a planet where every day was a fight for survival, extreme weather, dangerous animals, and scarce resources. If you wanted to live, you had to learn how to make do with what you had. As the cadets worked on the ship, they relied on their instincts and training. They used basic tools, repurposed materials, and sheer determination to get the job done. The alien technology was strange and complex, but the cadets approached it with curiosity and creativity. They didn't see barriers, they saw puzzles to solve. One of the cadets, a young woman with short cropped hair, found herself staring at a control panel filled with alien symbols. She didn't understand the language, but she recognized patterns. "This looks like a power relay," she muttered, tracing the lines with her fingers. "If we reroute this here." Her teammate, a lanky cadet with a knack for mechanics, nodded. "Yeah, and if we bypass the circuit, we can boost the output." They worked in silence, their movements quick and precise. The other cadets followed their lead, each contributing their skills. One cadet, who had grown up in the deserts of Earth, used his knowledge of solar energy to rig a temporary power source. Another, who had survived the frozen tundras, found a way to stabilize the ship's temperature controls. As the hours passed, the ship began to come alive. Lights flickered on, systems booted up, and the hum of the engines grew louder. The aliens watched in awe, their skepticism turning to admiration. But the cadets weren't done yet. As they worked, they began to notice something strange. The ship's systems were damaged, yes, but some of the damage seemed intentional. Wires had been cut, circuits had been fried, and key components were missing. The lead cadet frowned. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "Why would someone sabotage their own ship?" Before anyone could answer, a voice echoed through the ship's intercom. It was deep and mechanical, unlike anything the cadets had ever heard. "Unauthorized access detected," the voice said. "Initiating security protocol." The cadets froze. The aliens looked at each other, their faces pale. "What's happening?" one of the cadets asked. The alien leader hesitated. "The ship's AI, it's been dormant since the crash. We didn't think it would reactivate." The cadets exchanged glances. This was no ordinary AI. There was something about its tone, its words, that sent a chill down their spines. The lead cadet stepped forward. "We need to talk to it," he said. "If it's controlling the ship, we need to know what it's planning." The others nodded, but before they could act, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed across the walls. Warning, the AI's voice boomed. Core instability detected. Catastrophic failure imminent. The cadets' hearts raced. They had fixed the engines, but now they faced an even greater threat. The ship's core was unstable, and if it exploded, it would take everyone, and everything, with it. The lead cadet turned to his team. "We need to stabilize the core," he said. "Now." The cadets sprang into action, their training kicking in. They didn't have time to think, only to act. As they raced toward the core, the AI's voice followed them, cold and unyielding. "You cannot stop the inevitable," it said. "The core will fail. You will fail." But the cadets didn't listen. They were from Earth. Failure wasn't an option. The cadets sprinted through the ship's narrow corridors, their boots clanging against the metal floors. The alarms grew louder, and the red lights flashed faster, creating a sense of urgency that pushed them forward. The AI's voice continued to echo around them, cold and unfeeling. "Core instability at 85%, it announced. Catastrophic failure in 15 minutes. The lead cadet, his scarred face set in determination, glanced at his team. "We need to split up," he said. "You two, check the power relays. You, stabilize the cooling systems. I'll handle the core." The cadets nodded and scattered, each knowing their role. They had trained for situations like this, not on an alien ship, but in environments just as deadly. Earth had prepared them for the worst, and now that training was paying off. As the lead cadet approached the core chamber, he noticed something strange. The door was sealed shut, but the control panel had been tampered with. Wires hung loose, and the screen was cracked. Someone had deliberately locked the core, making it harder to access. "This doesn't add up," he muttered. "Why would they sabotage their own ship?" He pulled out a multi-tool from his belt and began working on the panel. His hands moved quickly, splicing wires and bypassing circuits. After a few tense moments, the door hissed open, revealing the core chamber. Inside, the core pulsed with a dangerous, unstable energy. The air was thick with heat, and the walls vibrated with the force of the energy buildup. The cadet stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room for anything that could help him stabilize the core. That's when he saw it. Hidden behind a panel was a small device, blinking with a faint red light. It was a bomb. The cadet's heart raced. This wasn't just an accident or a malfunction. Someone had planted this here, intending to destroy the ship. But why? He carefully removed the device and examined it. It was alien technology, but it had been modified, crudely, as if someone had rigged it in a hurry. The cadet's mind raced. Who would want to destroy the ship? And why had the alien crew lied about the damage? Before he could think further, the AI's voice interrupted him. "Unauthorized access to core chamber detected," it said. "Initiating lockdown." The door behind him slammed shut, trapping him inside. The cadet cursed under his breath. He was running out of time. Meanwhile, the other cadets were facing their own challenges. The two working on the power relays found that several key components had been removed, making it impossible to reroute the energy. The cadet stabilizing the cooling systems discovered that the coolant tanks had been drained. It was clear now, the ship hadn't just been damaged in the crash. It had been sabotaged. The cadets regrouped near the core chamber, their faces grim. "Someone doesn't want this ship to fly," one of them said. "And they don't want us to fix it," another added. The lead cadet nodded. "We need to find out who's behind this. But first, we have to stabilize the core. If we don't, none of this will matter." The team worked together, using every ounce of their ingenuity and resourcefulness. They jury-rigged a temporary cooling system, bypassed the missing power relays, and managed to slow the core's instability. But it was only a temporary fix. As the cadets caught their breath, the alien leader approached them. His expression was unreadable, but there was a hint of something in his eyes, guilt, perhaps, or fear. "You've done well," he said. But you must understand, this ship is more than it seems. The cadets exchanged glances. What do you mean? The lead cadet asked. The alien hesitated, then sighed. This ship, it's not just a transport vessel. It's a weapon. A weapon capable of destroying entire planets. The cadet stared at him, stunned. We were tasked with delivering it to a remote system, the alien continued. But some of us, we couldn't go through with it. We tried to sabotage the ship, to prevent it from being used. But something went wrong, and we crashed here. The lead cadet's mind raced. This changed everything. The ship wasn't just a broken vessel, it was a threat. A threat that could fall into the wrong hands. We need to destroy it, he said firmly. The alien shook his head. It's not that simple. The core is too unstable. If we try to destroy it, the explosion could wipe out this entire planet. The cadets fell silent, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. They were trapped between impossible choices: let the ship fall into the wrong hands, or risk destroying everything to stop it. As they debated their next move, the AI's voice returned, colder than ever. Core instability at 95%, it said. Catastrophic failure in 5 minutes. The cadets knew they were out of time. They had to make a decision, and fast. The cadets stood in the dimly lit corridor, the weight of their decision pressing down on them. The ship's core was on the brink of explosion, and they had only minutes to act. The alien leader's revelation about the ship being a weapon had changed everything. They couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands, but destroying it risked catastrophic consequences. The lead cadet clenched his fists, his mind racing. We need a third option, he said. Something that disables the weapon without blowing up the ship. One of the cadets, the one with short-cropped hair, stepped forward. What if we isolate the core? Cut it off from the rest of the ship and eject it into space. The explosion would happen far enough away to avoid damaging the planet. The others nodded, seeing the logic in her plan. But the alien leader shook his head. The core is too integrated with the ship's systems. Isolating it would take hours, time we don't have. The cadets exchanged grim looks. They were running out of options. The lead cadet took a deep breath. Then we'll have to do it the hard way. We'll manually override the core systems and force a controlled shutdown. It's risky, but it's our only shot. The team sprang into action, splitting up to tackle different parts of the ship. The lead cadet and the short-haired cadet headed for the core chamber, while the others worked on stabilizing the ship's secondary systems. As they approached the core chamber, the heat grew unbearable. The air shimmered with the intensity of the energy buildup, and the walls vibrated with the force of the unstable core. The lead cadet wiped sweat from his brow and turned to his teammate. Once we're in there, we'll have to work fast, he said. No room for mistakes. She nodded, her expression determined. Let's do this. They pried open the door to the core chamber and stepped inside. The core pulsed with a dangerous, blinding light, its energy barely contained. The cadets moved quickly, their hands flying over the control panels as they worked to override the systems. But the AI wasn't going to make it easy for them. Unauthorized shutdown attempt detected, the AI's voice boomed. Initiating countermeasures. The ship shuddered violently, and the cadets were thrown off their feet. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered as the AI fought back against their efforts. The lead cadet gritted his teeth and pulled himself up. We're not giving up, he growled. He and his teammate redoubled their efforts, working in perfect sync. They bypassed security protocols, rerouted power flows, and disabled safety overrides. It was a race against time, and every second counted. Meanwhile, the other cadets were facing their own challenges. The lanky mechanic cadet was working on the ship's thrusters, trying to stabilize them enough to buy more time. The desert survival expert was rigging a makeshift cooling system to prevent the core from overheating further. Back in the core chamber, the lead cadet and his teammate were making progress. The core's energy levels were dropping, but not fast enough. We're running out of time, the short-haired cadet said, her voice tense. The lead cadet nodded. One last push. They worked furiously, their hands moving faster than ever. The core's light dimmed, and the vibrations lessened. They were so close. Then the AI struck back. A surge of energy shot through the control panels, sending sparks flying. The cadets were thrown to the ground, their vision blurred and their ears ringing. The lead cadet struggled to his feet, his body aching. He looked at the core and felt a sinking feeling in his chest. The energy levels were rising again. No, he whispered. We were so close. The short-haired cadet grabbed his arm. We can't give up, she said fiercely. We're from Earth. We don't know how to quit. Her words sparked something in him. He nodded, determination flooding his veins. Let's finish this. They returned to the control panels, ignoring the pain and exhaustion. With one final effort, they overrode the AI's countermeasures and initiated the shutdown sequence. The core's light flickered and dimmed. The vibration stopped, and the heat began to dissipate. The cadets held their breath, waiting for the final confirmation. Then the AI's voice rang out, quieter this time. Core shutdown complete. Threat neutralized. The cadets slumped to the ground, relief washing over them. They had done it. Against all odds, they had stabilized the core and prevented a catastrophe. But their victory was short-lived. The alien leader entered the core chamber, his expression unreadable. You've done well, he said. But this isn't over. The ones who sent us, they won't stop until this ship is in their hands. The cadets exchanged wary glances. They had saved the ship, but they had also uncovered a much larger threat. The lead cadet stood, his body aching, but his resolve unshaken. Then we'll stop them, he said. No matter what it takes. The cadets stood in the core chamber, their bodies exhausted but their spirits unbroken. They had stabilized the ship's core, but the alien leader's words hung heavy in the air. The ones who had sent the ship, the ones who wanted its destructive power, would not stop until they had it. The lead cadet turned to the alien leader, his eyes sharp. Who are they? He demanded. And why do they want the ship? The alien hesitated, his gaze flickering to the ground. They are a faction within our government. A group that believes in using fear and destruction to maintain control. They built this ship as a weapon, a symbol of their power. But not all of us agreed with their methods. That's why we sabotaged the ship, to stop them. The cadets exchanged glances. The story was starting to make sense, but there were still too many unanswered questions. If you were trying to stop them, why didn't you just destroy the ship? The short-haired cadet asked. The alien leader sighed. We tried. But the core is too unstable. Destroying it would have caused an explosion large enough to wipe out this planet. We couldn't risk it. The lead cadet nodded, understanding the dilemma. But something still didn't sit right with him. Why didn't you tell us this from the beginning? He asked. Before the alien could answer, a loud clang echoed through the ship. The cadets spun around, their instincts on high alert. What was that? One of the cadets asked, his voice tense. The alien leader's face paled. They're here. Who's here? The lead cadet demanded. But he didn't need an answer. The sound of heavy footsteps filled the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. The cadets braced themselves, their training kicking in. A group of aliens appeared in the doorway, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. They carried weapons, strange, glowing devices that hummed with energy. The lead cadet stepped forward, his hands raised. We don't want any trouble, he said. We've stabilized the ship. There's no need for violence. One of the helmeted aliens stepped forward, his voice cold and mechanical. You've interfered for the last time, he said. The ship belongs to us now. Before the cadets could react, the aliens raised their weapons. A burst of energy shot through the air, narrowly missing the lead cadet. Get down, he shouted, diving for cover. The cadets scattered, using the ship's machinery and debris as makeshift shields. The aliens advanced, their weapons firing relentlessly. The lead cadet peeked out from behind a console, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outgunned. They needed a plan, and fast. He turned to the short-haired cadet, who was crouched beside him. "We need to split up," he said. "You and the others, find a way to disable their weapons. I'll hold them off." She nodded, her eyes fierce. "Be careful." As she and the other cadets slipped away, the lead cadet stood, drawing the aliens' attention. He grabbed a piece of metal from the floor and hurled it at them, hitting one of the weapons and causing it to short-circuit. The aliens turned their focus on him, their weapons glowing brighter. The lead cadet ducked and weaved, using the ship's tight corridors to his advantage. He knew he couldn't take them all on, but he could buy his team some time. Meanwhile, the other cadets were working quickly. The lanky mechanic cadet had found a control panel and was rerouting power to the ship's doors, sealing off sections of the ship to slow the aliens' advance. The desert survival expert was rigging a makeshift trap, using the ship's wiring to create an electric barrier. The short-haired cadet, however, had a different plan. She had noticed that the aliens' weapons were powered by the same energy source as the ship's core. If she could disrupt that energy flow, she could disable their weapons. She worked frantically, her hands moving over the control panels. Sweat dripped down her face as she bypassed security protocols and rerouted power. Come on," she muttered under her breath. Finally, she found what she was looking for. With a final push, she activated the disruption sequence. The ship shuddered, and the aliens' weapons flickered and died. The cadets seized the opportunity, launching a counterattack. The lead cadet grabbed a metal pipe and charged at the nearest alien, disarming him with a swift strike. The other cadets followed suit, using their wits and resourcefulness to turn the tide. But the aliens weren't defeated yet. Their leader, the one with the mechanical voice, stepped forward, his weapon still active. "You think you've won?" he sneered. "You're nothing but insects. This ship will be ours, and there's nothing you can do to stop us." The lead cadet stood tall, his eyes blazing. "We're from Earth," he said. "And we don't back down." With a roar, he charged at the alien leader, tackling him to the ground. The two struggled, their strength evenly matched. But the cadet had something the alien didn't: determination. With a final, powerful strike, he knocked the alien leader unconscious. The remaining aliens, seeing their leader defeated, retreated into the shadows. The cadets stood together, their bodies bruised but their spirits unbroken. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The alien leader, the one who had initially betrayed them, stepped forward, his expression filled with regret. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want it to come to this." The lead cadet looked at him, his eyes hard. "You have a lot to explain," he said. "And you're going to help us stop this, once and for all." The cadets gathered in the ship's control room, their faces grim but determined. The alien leader, now bound and under guard, sat in the corner, his head bowed. The cadets knew they had little time to waste. The faction that wanted the ship's weapon would not stay away for long. They needed answers, and a plan. The lead cadet stepped forward, his voice firm. "Start talking," he said. "Who are these people, and what do they want with this ship?" The alien leader sighed, his shoulders slumping. "They are the Vital," he said. "A powerful group within our government. They believe in using fear and destruction to control the galaxy. This ship, it was their ultimate weapon. A device capable of destroying entire planets in an instant." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. The thought of such a weapon falling into the wrong hands was terrifying. "Why didn't you destroy it?" the short-haired cadet asked. "If you knew how dangerous it was, why take the risk of keeping it intact?" The alien leader shook his head. "We tried. But the core is too unstable. Destroying it would have caused an explosion large enough to wipe out this entire system. We couldn't risk it. Our only option was to hide the ship and hope the Vatal would never find it. The lead cadet frowned. But they did find it. And now they're coming for it. The alien leader nodded. Yes. And if they succeed, they will use the ship to spread fear and destruction across the galaxy. Millions will die. The cadets fell silent, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. They had stumbled into something far bigger than they had imagined. But they also knew they couldn't walk away. They had to stop the Vatal, no matter the cost. The lead cadet turned to his team. We need a plan, he said. We can't let them take this ship. But we also can't destroy it without risking innocent lives. The lanky mechanic cadet stepped forward, his eyes bright with an idea. What if we disable the weapon? Make it useless without destroying the ship? The others nodded, seeing the potential in his plan. But the alien leader shook his head. It's not that simple, he said. The weapon is integrated into the ship's core. Disabling it would require accessing the core's control systems, a task that is nearly impossible without triggering a catastrophic failure. The cadets exchanged frustrated glances. Every option seemed to lead to the same dead end. The short-haired cadet, however, wasn't ready to give up. What if we don't disable the weapon, she said. What if we repurpose it? The others turned to her, intrigued. What do you mean? The lead cadet asked. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. The weapon uses the core's energy, right? What if we redirect that energy? Use it to power something else, something that can stop the Vatal without destroying the ship. The alien leader's eyes widened. It's possible, he said slowly. But it would require precise calculations and a complete overhaul of the ship's systems. One mistake, and the core could destabilize. The lead cadet looked at his team, his expression determined. We've faced worse odds, he said. If there's a chance we can stop the Vatal without sacrificing innocent lives, we have to take it. The cadets nodded, their resolve hardening. They knew the risks, but they also knew they couldn't stand by and let the Vatal win. The team got to work, their movements quick and efficient. The lanky mechanic cadet and the short-haired cadet focused on rerouting the core's energy, while the others worked on stabilizing the ship's systems. The alien leader, now cooperating fully, provided guidance and technical knowledge. As they worked, the ship's sensors picked up an incoming signal. The Vatal were coming, and they were bringing reinforcements. We're out of time, the lead cadet said, his voice tense. We need to finish this now. The cadets redoubled their efforts, their hands flying over the control panels. The core's energy levels fluctuated wildly as they redirected its power, but they managed to keep it under control. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the short-haired cadet stepped back, her face pale but triumphant. It's done, she said. The weapon is offline. The core's energy is now powering the ship's defenses. The lead cadet nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. Good work, he said. Now let's see if it's enough. The ship's sensors showed the Vatal fleet approaching, their ships bristling with weapons. The cadets braced themselves, knowing the real battle was about to begin. The alien leader looked at the cadets, his expression filled with gratitude. You've done what we could not, he said. But the Vatal will not stop. They will fight to the end. The lead cadet met his gaze, his eyes steady. Then we'll be ready, he said. As the Vatal fleet closed in, the cadets stood together, their determination unshakable. They had faced impossible odds before, and they had always come out on top. This time would be no different. The cadets stood in the ship's control room, their eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching Vatal fleet. The ships were massive, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The cadets knew they were outmatched in terms of firepower, but they had something the Vatal didn't, ingenuity and determination. The lead cadet turned to his team, his voice calm but firm. We need a plan, he said. We can't take them head-on. We need to outsmart them. The short-haired cadet stepped forward, her eyes sharp with focus. We've repurposed the core's energy to power the ship's defenses. If we can lure them into a trap, we might be able to disable their ships without a direct fight. The lanky mechanic cadet nodded. We could use the ship's thrusters to create a debris field. If we time it right, we can scatter the debris in their path and force them to slow down. The desert survival expert chimed in. And if we can get close enough, we can use the ship's energy to overload their systems. It's risky, but it might work. The lead cadet considered their suggestions, his mind racing. It was a bold plan, but it was their best shot. All right, he said. Here's what we'll do. He laid out the plan step by step, assigning each cadet a specific role. The short-haired cadet would handle the ship's defenses, using the repurposed core energy to create a shield and target the Vatal ships. The lanky mechanic cadet would rig the thrusters to create the debris field, while the desert survival expert would prepare the energy overload device. The alien leader, now fully cooperating, provided technical support and guidance. The Vatal ships have a weak point, he said. Their energy cores are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. If you can hit them with a strong enough pulse, it will disable their systems. The cadets nodded, incorporating this information into their plan. They knew the risks, but they also knew they had no other choice. As the Vatal fleet drew closer, the cadets sprang into action. The lanky mechanic cadet worked on the thrusters, his hands moving quickly over the control panels. The desert survival expert rigged the energy overload device, using spare parts and his knowledge of energy systems to create a powerful pulse generator. The short-haired cadet focused on the ship's defenses, her eyes glued to the holographic display. She monitored the Vatal ship's movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The lead cadet stood at the center of the control room, coordinating their efforts. His mind was calm, his focus unwavering. He had faced impossible odds before, and he knew that staying calm under pressure was the key to success. Finally, the Vatal fleet was within range. Now, the lead cadet shouted. The lanky mechanic cadet activated the thrusters, sending a burst of energy that scattered debris into the Vatal's path. The ships slowed, their movements becoming erratic as they navigated the debris field. The short-haired cadet seized the opportunity, activating the ship's defenses. A powerful energy shield enveloped their ship, deflecting the Vatal's initial attacks. She targeted the nearest Vatal ship, firing a concentrated burst of energy that struck its weak point. The Vatal ship shuddered, its systems overloading. It drifted aimlessly, disabled but not destroyed. The desert survival expert activated the energy overload device, sending a powerful electromagnetic pulse through the debris field. The pulse rippled through the Vatal fleet, disabling their systems one by one. The cadets watched in awe as the Vatal ships drifted helplessly, their weapons silent and their engines dead. But the battle wasn't over yet. The lead Vatal ship, larger and more heavily armored than the others, remained active. It loomed over the cadet's ship, its weapons charging for a final, devastating attack. The lead cadet's eyes narrowed. "We're not done yet," he said. "We need to take that ship down." The short-haired cadet nodded, her hands flying over the control panels. "I'm rerouting all available energy to the defenses. We'll need everything we've got to take it out." The lanky mechanic cadet and the desert survival expert worked together, rigging a makeshift weapon using the ship's remaining energy. It was a risky move, but they had no other choice. As the lead Vatal ship prepared to fire, the cadets launched their final attack. A concentrated burst of energy shot from their ship, striking the Vatal ship's weak point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Vatal ship's systems began to fail. Its weapons sputtered and died, and its engines shut down. The ship drifted aimlessly, its threat neutralized. The cadets let out a collective breath, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defeated the Vatal fleet. But their victory came at a cost. The ship's core, strained from the intense energy output, began to destabilize. "We need to get out of here," the lead cadet said, his voice urgent. The core's going to blow. The cadets scrambled to the escape pods, their movements quick but orderly. They knew they had only minutes before the core exploded. As they launched the escape pods, the ship's core erupted in a blinding flash of light. The explosion rippled through space, consuming the Vatal fleet and the cadets' ship in a fiery blaze. The cadets watched from a safe distance, their hearts heavy but their spirits unbroken. They had saved the galaxy from a terrible threat, but they had also lost something in the process. The lead cadet turned to his team, his eyes filled with determination. "This isn't the end," he said. "We've still got work to do." The escape pods drifted through the vastness of space, the cadets inside watching as the remnants of their ship and the Vatal fleet were consumed by the explosion. The silence was heavy, each cadet lost in their thoughts. They had won the battle, but the cost was steep. The lead cadet broke the silence, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "We're not done yet," he said. "The Vatal may be defeated, but their leaders are still out there. We need to make sure they can't rebuild or try this again." The others nodded, their exhaustion replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They had come too far to stop now. The alien leader, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "There is a way," he said. "The Vatal's command center is on a remote planet. If we can reach it, we can dismantle their operations for good." The cadets exchanged glances. It was a risky plan, but they had faced worse odds. "Do you know where this planet is?" the short-haired cadet asked. The alien leader nodded. "I can guide us there. But we'll need a ship." The lanky mechanic cadet grinned. "I think I can help with that." Using the escape pod's communication systems, he sent out a distress signal. It wasn't long before a response came, a small, independent trader ship willing to help in exchange for a favor. The cadets boarded the trader ship, their determination unwavering. The alien leader provided the coordinates, and the ship set course for the Vatal's command center. As they traveled, the cadets prepared for the final showdown. They knew this would be their toughest challenge yet. The Vatal's leaders were ruthless and would stop at nothing to protect their power. When they arrived at the planet, the cadets were met with a heavily fortified base. Towers bristled with weapons, and patrols scoured the perimeter. The lead cadet studied the base through the ship's viewport, his mind racing. "We'll need a distraction," he said. "Something to draw their attention while we infiltrate the base." The desert survival expert stepped forward. "I can create a diversion. If I set off an explosion on the far side of the base, it should draw their forces away." The lead cadet nodded. "Do it. The rest of us will infiltrate the base and take out their leaders." The plan was set in motion. The desert survival expert slipped away, using his skills to navigate the terrain and plant explosives. The rest of the cadets, along with the alien leader, prepared to infiltrate the base. As the explosion rocked the far side of the base, chaos erupted. Patrols scrambled to respond, leaving the main entrance lightly guarded. The cadets moved quickly, using the distraction to their advantage. They slipped past the guards and entered the base, their movements silent and precise. Inside, the base was a maze of corridors and security systems. The cadets relied on their training and instincts to navigate the labyrinth, avoiding detection as they made their way to the command center. Finally, they reached the heart of the base. The command center was a large, dimly lit room filled with holographic displays and control panels. At the center stood the Vatal's leaders, their faces twisted with anger and fear. The lead cadet stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's over," he said. "Your fleet is gone, and your weapon is destroyed. Surrender now, and we'll make sure you're treated fairly." The Vatal leaders sneered. "You think you've won?" one of them spat. "We are the Vatal. We will never surrender." Before the cadets could react, the leaders activated a hidden control panel. The room began to shake, and alarms blared. "They're trying to destroy the base," the alien leader shouted. The cadets sprang into action, working together to disable the self-destruct sequence. The short-haired cadet focused on the control panels, her hands flying over the buttons and switches. The lanky mechanic cadet and the desert survival expert worked to stabilize the base's systems, their movements quick and efficient. But the Vatal leaders weren't going down without a fight. They lunged at the cadets, their movements desperate and wild. The lead cadet met them head-on, his training and determination giving him the edge. He disarmed one leader with a swift strike, while the others were subdued by his teammates. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the self-destruct sequence was disabled. The base fell silent, the threat neutralized. The cadets stood together, their bodies bruised but their spirits unbroken. They had done it. They had defeated the Vatal and dismantled their operations. The alien leader looked at the cadets, his expression filled with gratitude. "You've done what no one else could," he said. "The galaxy owes you a debt it can never repay." The lead cadet shook his head. "We didn't do this for recognition," he said. "We did it because it was the right thing to do." As they left the base, the cadets knew their journey was far from over. There would always be new threats, new challenges. But they also knew they had each other, and that was enough.